Today, we're going to look at the past continuous or the past progressive tense. We use the past progressive tense to talk about actions that were ongoing at a specific time in the past, actions that were interrupted by another action in the past, or two or more simultaneous actions happening in the past. Some examples of these: for ongoing action, she was reading at 8 p.m. last night. Interrupted action, I was cooking when the phone rang. Simultaneous acts, they were playing while I was studying. Notice for the interrupted action, I was cooking when the phone rang. We are using two different verb tenses in this sentence. Did you notice? Let's look at that. So for interrupted actions, we use the past progressive tense for an action that was happening when another action interrupted it. The first action began and was continuing when the second action occurred. We use the past progressive for the first or longer action and use the simple past for the second action, or the one that interrupts the first. So if you look at the chart in the past, you have an action that was occurring in the past progressive, and then there's an interruption, and that interruption is going to be in the simple past tense. Let's look at an example. So an example, I was cooking when the phone rang. So I was cooking using the past progressive. That action was occurring in the past, and then boom, it was interrupted. The phone rang. So the interrupting action is going to be in the simple past tense. I was cooking when the phone rang. Another example, the rain started while we were walking to the park. So again, we were walking in the past. It was continuing on, and then boom, an interruption happened. It started raining. We're saying it was started raining in the simple past. So the rain started while we were walking to the park. All right. And for the positive structure of the past progressive, we're going to use I, he, she, it, plus was, plus the verb taking the ing form. So I was eating, he was eating, she was eating, it was eating. And for we, you, and they, we're going to use were plus the verb ing. So we were eating, you were eating, they were eating. For negative structure, all we do is add not behind the was or the were. So I was not eating, he was not eating, and we can also use the contraction, especially in spoken English. She wasn't eating, it wasn't eating. And then for we, you, and they, we would use were not. So we were not eating, you were not eating, and the contraction, they weren't eating. Go ahead and take a look at this. Pause the video. What you're going to do is fill in the blanks using the past progressive tense. All right, hopefully you had time to pause the video and work on these. Let's look at the answers. Maria was driving to her mother's house. She wasn't listening to the radio. She didn't know that a tornado was coming toward her. The sky was getting darker and darker, but she thought it was just an ordinary storm. Suddenly, there was a big noise. It was as dark as night, and the wind was blowing very hard. Pieces of houses and trees were flying everywhere. Then she knew what was happening. She was inside a tornado. Maria screamed. Then she saw her mother's house, but she was looking down at it from 25 feet in the air. Maria was lucky. The tornado dropped the car in her mother's backyard. She lived to tell the story. All right, making questions with the past progressive, you're going to invert the order. So was or were plus I, he, she, it, we, you, they, plus the verb ing. So for example, was I eating? Was he eating? Was she eating? Was it eating? Or for we, you, and they, you would use were. So were we eating? Were you eating? Were they eating? And to answer those questions, you could say, yes, I was. No, I wasn't. Yes, you were. No, you weren't. For WH questions, you're going to put the WH word first, plus was or were, plus I, he, she, it, we, you, they, plus the verb ing. So for example, what was I saying? Where were you going? And notice for who, in formal written English, the WH word would become whom. So in formal written English, you're going to say whom, not who. But for spoken English and informal English, it's more common to use the word who. Go ahead and pause the video. You have the answers for each of the questions below. And what you're going to do is actually write the question in the blank. So for number 1, the answer, Tim was walking on the beach. And we're going to form the question, where was Tim walking? All right, hopefully you had time to pause the video and work on these. Let's look at the answers. Number 2, the wind was blowing very hard. What was the question? How hard was the wind blowing? Number 3, the waves were crashing on the sand. The question, where were the waves crashing? Number 4, the answer, the black clouds were coming towards the land very fast. The question, how fast were the black clouds coming towards the land? Number 5, the answer, her husband was covering the windows with wood when she got home. Question, when was her husband covering the windows with wood? Now we're going to look at some time expressions that are commonly used with the past progressive. We have while, when, at, all day, morning, night, and as. For example, I was reading a book when the phone rang. These are some common mistakes that are made when using the past progressive. Number 1, do not use was or were and a verb without ing to indicate the past progressive. So incorrect. When I got my first job, I was live in LA. Be sure to use the verb ing form. So when I got my first job, I was living in LA. Another common mistake, don't mix up the past progressive tense and the simple past tense. So incorrect, I cut the onions, then I was putting them in soup. Correct would be, I cut the onions, then I put them in the soup. Just for practice, I want you to go ahead and pause this video and complete the sentences with the simple past or the past progressive. We will be doing another lesson on this, when to use the simple past versus the past progressive. But if you'd like to test yourself and see your skill level, go ahead and take a look. We'll go over the answers in just a moment. All right, hopefully you had time to fill this out. And again, we're going to be doing another video soon on when to use the simple past versus the past progressive. So let's take a look. It was raining very hard when the bus left the school. When we got home, my Aunt Deb and Uncle Lee told us to run into the storm cellar underground. When I looked up the road, I saw that a tornado was coming toward our house. The tornado was passing over us while we were trying to get down the stairs of the shelter. Everyone was screaming for help while the tornado was throwing things on top of us. Suddenly, the wind became very still. My uncle and sister were hurt, but we all survived. Another common mistake when using the past progressive is spelling of the present participle, so the verb plus ing. Be mindful of your spelling. So incorrect would be cutting with one T, sitting with one T, planning with one N, eating with two T's, helping with two P's, and opening with two N's. That is incorrect. The correct would be as below: cutting, double T, sitting, double T, planning, double N, eating with one T, helping one P, and opening with one N. So some of the spelling rules when adding ing to the verb. Most verbs you simply add ing to the base form of the verb. So do becomes doing, play becomes playing, study becomes studying. For verbs that end in E, you're going to drop the E and add ing. So make becomes making, take becomes taking, write becomes writing. And for one-syllable verbs that end in consonant, vowel, consonant, you're going to double the final consonant and add ing. So sit, it's one syllable. It ends in consonant, vowel, consonant. You're going to double that last letter before adding the ing. Sitting with two T's. Run, same thing, one syllable. Consonant, vowel, consonant ending. You're going to double the N before adding ing. Running, double N. Plan, it's one syllable. It ends in consonant, vowel, consonant. You're going to double the last letter before adding ing. Planning with two N's. And then for verbs that end in IE, you're going to change the IE to Y and then add ing. So we have tying, dying, lying. And then for verbs that end in C, you're going to add a K before you add the ing. So picnicking, panicking, mimicking. The fourth and final common mistake, don't use the past progressive if the verb does not show an action as opposed to a state of being. So verbs that are rarely in the progressive tense are own, possess, like, love, need, want, have, seem, feel, be, prefer, remember, forgot, and believe. So these verbs are very, very rarely ever used in the progressive tense. You would just want to use the simple past. So incorrect. From 2020 to 2023, I was owning 2 cars. This is incorrect. You would want to use the simple past. From 2020 to 2023, I owned 2 cars. All right, let's practice. What were these people doing at 7 p.m. last night? Answer the questions. So number 1 is done for us as an example. Was Tina cooking dinner? We're going to look at Tina's picture. She says, I was cooking dinner. So the answer, yes, she was. Go ahead and do 2 through 6. Pause your video. We'll go over the answers in just a minute. All right, hopefully you had time to work on these. Let's take a look. Number 2, what was Dino doing? And we see the picture of Dino. He says, I was talking on the phone. So we would say he was talking on the phone. Number 3, was Frank talking on the phone? No, he wasn't. Number 4, what was Pauline doing? She was emailing her friends. Number 5, were Sam and Louisa cooking dinner? No, they weren't. Number 6, what were Sam and Louisa doing? They were babysitting their grandchildren. All right, let's take a look at this one. You're going to correct the mistakes in each of the sentences. The first one is done for you. What was Beth doing yesterday morning? Go ahead and pause your video. All right, hopefully you had time to go through these. Let's take a look at the answers. Number 2, Teresa and Jimmy were watching TV all day. Number 3, I was talking with my friend on Monday night. Number 4, was he writing a letter? Number 5, what were you wearing yesterday? Number 6, I was baking a cake for my daughter. All right, final activity. What were you doing at each of these times yesterday? So for example, 7 a.m., I was sleeping. So go ahead and think about what you did yesterday and fill in the blanks with the past progressive tense. All right, let's look at some answers. Again, these answers are going to vary. It depends on what you did yesterday. But some examples. 7 a.m., I was getting ready for work. At 9 a.m., I was working. At noon, I was eating lunch. At 3 p.m., I was picking my kids up from school. At 6 p.m., I was cooking dinner. At 10 p.m., I was reading a book. Thank you for listening. I hope this helped. Have a great rest of your day.